Okay, I hate doing intros, so I'm going to have a timestamp to let you just skip it entirely because I would hate to watch it unless you really wanted to listen to me talk about something a little bit unrelated to Deftones. But I felt like I had to bring it up because it's kind of relevant to the channel that I'm posting this on. In case you weren't aware, this music project that I started in 2017 as like a personal outlet uh, derived its name from a line of lyrics in a song called "Tread Lightly" by Mastodon. And in light of today's news, technically this happened last night now, but it's been kind of shitty for me to have to, process what's been happening. Mastodon came into my life because it was featured on the game Rock Band 2. Specifically, it was the song Colony of Birchmen. And ever since then, like I was 10 years old at the time. For me, my entire like teenage years were very heavily influenced by, a small batch of bands, and Mastodon was one of them. And so to me, like these guys were, in a way, childhood heroes. I have a very small family that I actively talk to, and I keep a very small and tight-knit group of friends as well. And so the next most important people in my life outside of that are the people that I look up to. And as a weird parallel that I can kind of draw from thinking about it is what I experienced with Mythbusters, because that show for me was so profoundly impactful as a kid. I'd come back from school and I'd watch it. And so for me, learning about as a teenager now, learning about the relationship between Adam and Jamie and how they never got along and how they would always fight, and how when the show was over they parted ways and would not ever communicate with each other. And it sucked to have to process that, because you don't get that image in your head when you're watching the show, especially when you're younger and you might not be able to like read into the various clues and signs as to what might be going on behind the scenes. So that was hard. But what was harder for me was also then dealing with the very sudden and unexpected passing of Grant Imahara. Like that was rough. Like I do remember like crying about it because I couldn't. It felt like a part of my childhood was gone. Like because these are people that, they don't know me and I don't know them, but in a weird cosmic sense, they still had a very profound and important impact on my life. Like I would not be the person I am today without at least some influence of theirs. And so in a similar and like very dark parallel for me, because I don't really follow drama related news, so for me, like learning about just the fact that Brent was no longer in the band and reading about all the stuff that had been posted online, that was hard to read. Like it's kind of like watching two close friends fight. And again, I don't know these guys and they don't know me, so I'm not trying to be parasocial about it, but it feels that way because, it's people that are important to you in some way, shape, or form suddenly having this quite public, falling out with each other. And that was hard for me to process because it's like, how do I remain a fan of the band? And then so given today's, again, very sudden and unexpected and tragic passing of Brent, it's been kind of rough. Because again, like this band for me has been so important and important enough that, the project that I had spent 8+ years now writing music for was named after them. They might not be the most listened to band I've ever had, or they might not be, what I would name as the only band I would ever listen to if I was stranded on an island with one band to listen to until I die, right? But still, it sucks. It's not easy, and I do promise that I have not forgotten about Return to Life as primarily a music channel with reactions being just filler content. It's just, again, it's been hard for me to finish the album, and I have been working on music over the summer. It's not Return to Life music, and I don't want to advertise it here because it's not Return to Life music. So that's kind of the situation right now. But again, I'm not giving up on it. I have not abandoned it. If you're somehow a weird overlap with someone who actually cared about my music and also watches these, this is just also for your information as well. But without further ado, Deftones. These guys I discovered during COVID, literally right before Ohms came out. I was like, okay, I've heard so much about Deftones. My sister was, I don't want to say a big fan, but she listened to them, and for some reason they'd always kind of slipped my mind. And I was reinvigorated to listen to them because when COVID hit, and when bands like The Contortionist went on Twitch, especially early COVID, there's a lot of Twitch streams and YouTube streams with bands, just talking to fans because they couldn't play shows anymore. And pretty much everyone in The Contortionist brought up Deftones as like huge influence for them. And so that's kind of what pushed me to give them a shot. And I initially wasn't super convinced, especially with the newer stuff. I was not a big fan of Ohms. And Gore had a weird vibe, but honestly, over time, I've learned to love Gore, and even Ohms I appreciate. But Deftones over the last 5 years or so, ever since COVID, have been a huge influence on my life. Like last year, 2024, my most listened to band was Deftones. Above all your Dream Theaters and Between the Buried and Me's and The Contortionists and all that stuff, or anything new, or like your Hakens or whatnot, it was these guys. And so I've been looking forward with great anticipation to this record. I've obviously heard the two singles, so I won't be commenting a lot on those. But yeah, here we go. What is that? 6.5 minute intro is concluded. Wow. Wow. That scream is so good. Palm muted. The biggest issue I think I have with Ohms to this day is specifically Chino. It's a... Oh. This one's interesting. This one has a vibe that I... Like, this part, if anything, reminds me of, like, Adrenaline, but then it also has the melodicness of more new age Deftones. This song's so good. I don't have much to say about it outside of like that weird observation. Generally, just a thought on the mix. It's very... There's a lot of saturation on everything. It's like a weirdly distorted mix. Like everything, even the drums, every aspect of the mix feels like it's been kind of squeezed in a way. And it's not particularly negative. I'm interested to see how the album as a whole progresses. Like, I want to know if there's any songs where they change up the pacing a little bit. It's also another issue that I have with, like, Ohms especially. A little bit less gore, but also gore. I think the pacing of the album sucks. There's tracks on albums like Saturday Night Wrist that really, you know, sounds like... I mean, Cherry Waves is obvious. But even, like, stupid shit like Pink Cell Phone. Or... I'm blanking. It's 12 a.m. Sorry. Fucking... Beware. That really change up the pacing and make the album feel more interesting as like a complete product. Like, these songs are so good. Ooh. This track is kind of Diamond-Izey. Damn! I mean, so far so good. I want this next song to be... chill. What the fuck is happening? Ooh! From the E to the G sharp. E. Right, it's E? Yes. I heard that. This isn't like typical Gino delivery either. He never does this. What? Hello? I mean, this is almost like a Dream Theater section. That note it reminds me of I know which song it is. It's yeah, it's 976 Evil. That's the one. Ooh! That jump into the minor is really good. Let me see if I can pick it up. Yeah, from the D major to the G minor. It's leaning into the... No? I thought I was gonna do the... like the single note riff again. Or did we just get an outro? I did watch the Apple Music interview that was uploaded a month ago. I remember almost none of what was discussed. But I do remember that they mentioned that I Think About You All the Time was the first song they finished. Or the first song they wrote for the whole album. So I'm excited to see what that one sounds like. But yeah, I guess I have a little bit more time to discuss the mix. But yeah, everything in the mix, like every stem, feels like it's been individually saturated in some way. Like the drum saturation sounds a little bit different from like the way the guitars and the vocals sound. But everything kind of combines into like this very boxy package that, again, like normally I would hate it, but in the context of this album, I actually don't mind it. It sounds less clean. Like overall, the mix to me isn't as pleasant as like Koi no Yokan was. That mix to me is like the most warm and overall complete mix as far as like this modern Deftones sound. If we're looking at more classic Deftones, then I think White Pony takes that cake as far as like the best mix to fit their older style. I wonder if the title means anything other than just like the bottom left of the computer keyboard. Because CXZ is just the bottom left of the keyboard with a shift, which is also right over there. Also, yes, this is how you find out that I'm Canadian, outside of this. Ooh! The E-drums. There they are again. What? Right. Okay. Please be ballad. This is also definitely a Chino guitar part because it's in drop C. The snare is quite loud on this track. I can't be the only one that notices that. You can tell this was recorded in a bunch of different places, because I know that they worked not in one studio on these tracks. This one actually gives more 976 Evil vibes than Souvenir did. Ooh. Alright, banger incoming. I love this song. Bow, meow, 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 meow. I'm on fire. Spirit, spirit, spirit. I'm on fire. Spirit, I'm on fire. The 6-stroke roll drum fills, classic. Fire. I did love using those when I was still playing the drums. I do love programming them now that I just program drums. In case it wasn't obvious, I live in a fairly small apartment, so setting up my acoustic drums is not an option. So what you want? There's some songs with like really unique vibes. Lock Club did this to me, and so was this. Like, this vocal delivery is not normal for Deftones. And I'm not talking about like this part. I'm talking about the da 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 da. That's not a melody that typically they've built or like a motif that they've built melodies with. You can tell when it's a Deftones melody because it's got all your classic like major sevenths and shit in it, right? This is different. Ooh. Faster. And in 6. What is happening? Ooh! Ugh. Like, what is what's happening? What is this? This is so cool. This is almost like late No Doubt. Like, this sounds like it would be a track on Rocksteady. This part, not so much. That was a really cool track. Help.
There's a room we hang and spin. It's clear, cold.
Help. Was that Chino doing that too? What the? What are these noises? I like those chords. It is him. Okay, so this last track is the one that I feel like on first listen I understand the least. There's the duo of like Souvenir and CXZ that I was also kind of thinking, okay, I need some time with these to understand what's going on. So it was harder for me to be immediately positive about them, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Again, like some songs do take time to really feel like they've sunk in and you actually kind of understand what the vision behind them was. Like it feels simple enough to kind of understand how Milk of the Madonna goes because it's so motify. Like it kind of very heavily leans on two ideas, which is the idea for the verse and then the idea for the chorus, and then they just keep repeating and you're like, okay, yeah, I know how the song goes, right? Whereas these other ones, like especially the last song, you can't really predict what's going to happen, which makes it a little bit more of a challenging first listen and not necessarily as rewarding because you don't know what you're waiting for, if you know what I mean. Like you don't know what the treat is, so to speak. But I mean, hell yeah, this was really good. My immediate kind of impression that this is going to sit somewhere around the ballpark of where Diamond Eyes is for me. I don't know if there's a single track on this record that to me, at least right now, exceeds that of what like the best that album has to offer. To me, like I think the title track is really good. I'm a big fan of Rocket Skates, and I'm a really big fan of 976 Evil. And so to me, like those are the tracks that like I'm looking for something from this to be like, okay, I'm as good as you, by the way. But consistency-wise, over the course of like the entire record altogether, I feel like this sits in the same kind of ballpark, and that's pretty high. Like I think that's like top 50% for me for the Deftones albums. At least the way it is right now in first impression. Like for me, it would have been extremely tough to dethrone my top two, which are by a slim margin Saturday Night Wrist over Koi no Yokan. Like those two albums for me are kind of a class above the rest. And then you kind of get into Group B, where things like Diamond Eyes, I guess this would sit somewhere there. White Pony sits there. I'm not the biggest fan of White Pony, but I understand how it was important for its time and the overall value for the trajectory of the band that it had. And so for me, kind of like in the lower end of B tier is where White Pony would sit, because there are some songs in it that like, yeah, this goes super hard. Like my favorite Deftones song ever is on White Pony. And it's not Change, it's Digital Bath, right? Like that's kind of, it wasn't my intro to the band, but that's like when I imagine this band, that's the first one that comes to mind, right? Then I get things like Rosemary. And speaking about Rosemary, less so Digital Bath, but more Rosemary, I wish that in the vein of like circa 2010 Deftones, they would ramble more musically. It felt like, especially on the first few listens, specifically Koi no Yokan, but also sometimes Gore, those albums feel like they ramble for a bit, where like an idea lingers for seemingly almost too long, and it takes you some time to sit with the idea and kind of understand what the purpose of it was, to realize why it's being sat on for so long. Like it does honestly kind of feel like the first time you listen to KNY that album drags, right? But then you give it time and you sit with it and you're like, okay, I understand why, because they're letting each idea get its fair share of the pie, right? Whereas with this album in particular, I mean, not just with this album, but with a lot of the albums that rely more on like shorter songs, this is a problem that for me Diamond Eyes has, where the songs just kind of go and they happen, and there isn't a lot of necessarily like hooks for me to latch onto, outside of the few super memorable ones. Like obviously the guitar intro to Sex Tape is like, okay, yeah, Everyone knows it. But you know, there isn't a lot in like the non-single songs on that album that immediately jump out at you as like recognizable pieces. And again, I might get trashed on for this opinion because Deftones fans are known for their opinions, and I am also no short of opinions. But genuinely, to me, that's the big kind of falling short of this particular Deftones style. And I think with time, once I know the songs more, I might like retract that statement and be like, okay, yeah, there's definitely things that are very memorable and very hooky about these songs. But they might honestly come down more so as the vibe. Like the overall vibe of Lock Club and Cut Hands and Metal Dream was so unique that I couldn't figure out like what songs they resembled. I kind of threw out Adrenaline for Lock Club as like, okay, this kind of sounds like it, but at the same time it doesn't really. It is a very unique sound, and I do appreciate that for this record in particular they went in a direction where a lot of these songs have a unique sound. A big reason why Ohms to me is like in the bottom end of Deftones albums for me is because it almost felt like they relied too much on the Deftones formula. And when bands become formulaic, to me, that's kind of when they lose that, whatever it is. Every band has its own version of it that make me like them. And it's hard to put into words exactly what it is, but for me, that particular it was very heavily lacking in Ohms, and I feel like that it comes back in this. But there's some very unique things going on. Like the guitar work I think is like the least, I want to say, exotic out of everything that's happening. There's some cool drumming. The drumming unfortunately is not quite as it doesn't carry the band to the level that it did on White Pony, because White Pony is literally just the drums. The drums are doing everything on that album, and they're like without Abe, the band itself would not exist, and specifically White Pony could never exist, because some of the things like the drum pattern for Digital Bath is actually really, really cool. Like when you study it from a drum perspective, the overall pattern of how the snare versus kick versus hi-hat pattern is constructed is like exceptionally non-linear. It's super cool how it works out and how it supports kind of like that very mysterious and sexy and like almost that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's a very on edge kind of feel for that song, right? Whereas that doesn't happen quite as much on more modern Deftones stuff, and this album is no exception. Like I feel like the drumming takes a bit of a step back and lets other things do more. And the thing that really stood out to me on this album was Chino. Like this might be some of my favorite work from his perspective that they've possibly ever done. Which excites me because that was my biggest criticism with Ohms, outside of the fact that the songs are very formulaic. But even then, there were still some like notable songs. Like I'm a big fan of it's that one song, that one track that's like it goes like the link is dead. Air is pretty cool too, but yeah, to me Link is Dead is to me the highlight of this album, and it's kind of ironic that is by far the least listened to song on it, but them's the breaks. I unfortunately I am a fan of the deep cuts, and like if I were to theorycraft set list that I would love to hear, because I'll be seeing Deftones in 2 weeks when they come to Toronto. If I were to theorycraft like my perfect set list, it would feature a lot of deep cuts and a lot of songs that won't particularly make most people's choice set list for this band. But that's just me. Anyway, I feel like to some capacity express my initial opinion on it. Like I said, the positives for me, the genuine stuff that I liked was We're Creative Again and Chino, and the stuff that I maybe did not like on first listen as much were the fact that the songs didn't sit on ideas very much. Like they didn't have that kind of delayed payoff. The best examples I can think of for that kind of delayed payoff are things like Beware and Rosemary, where the song is happening and then you get to like the last minute of it and then the drop hits and you're like, fuck, let's go. That moment was very lacking outside of the ending of Cut Hands. When that happened, I was like, okay, this is that was very reminiscent of the way Diamond Eyes, the title track, finishes. Right? But outside of that, they didn't do a whole lot of let's linger a little bit. Let's have extended breaks between songs. Let's let a song tail. Saturday Night Wrist does this amazingly, where every song feels like it doesn't quite end because the outro goes on forever. Like the outro for Beware, all like the frog noises and the drums or whatever feel like they go on forever. The outro for Cherry Waves feels like it goes on for way too long, with just the drums and the ba ba ba. That it feels like it goes on for way too long. But in the grand scheme of the album, as far as like a start to finish, front to back experience, it helps to me as a fan of this band. Maybe other people don't see it the same way, but to me, a big reason of why those two albums, specifically like SNW and KNY, to stop tongue twisting myself, but those albums to me are my standouts because as a front to back experience, they feel the best. It feels like I'm going on a journey, which is something that I say a lot about music that I like. And I like it when I feel like I've gone somewhere from start to finish, from top to bottom, from cover to cover, however it is you choose to understand the metaphor or the analogy or whatever. But yeah, I'm tired. I gotta go to bed. I have work tomorrow. I gotta be up in like 6 hours, preferably. So yeah, good album. One of my favorites from this year. Definitely redeeming 2025 because I don't know, it's been kind of a weird year, but that's a topic for a different discussion. So good. Thank you, Deftone.